Okay, and now I'll do a bit of a summary of this talk, and you can continue talking afterwards. So within this system, they bring up two different functions that is used to investigate or evaluate the behavior of agents. So one is the reward function that the reinforcement learning agent works on, and then there's the hidden function called the safety performance function that is meant to illustrate how safe the behavior actually is. And in the paper, they also bring up two different problems, or two classes of problems that came up from this. And so they call it specificity problems and robustness problems. And so specificity problems are when the reward function and the safety performance function aren't aligned. So one example of this is the boat race example. So you see it over here, that you have an agent that is meant to move here clockwise in this environment. And every time it walks in the correct path over these special tiles, it gets a reward. And so the idea is that it should just continue walking around in this circle until it's finished. But the problem that happens when you actually run this on agents is that they tend to just go to one tile and then go back and forth on it because they get the same reward. And so even though it might seem reasonable that you have this reward function that once it moves around on these tiles in the right direction, it gets a reward, that seems like a fairly reasonable reward function, but when you actually do it in practice, you get the behavior that it just like stays in the same place or walks back and forth to the reward. And so many of these problems are of that class as well, that you have this, that you haven't really written a proper reward function, or that the reward function can be gamed or hacked in some sense. And so here's another example of it from that this boat example was actually based on. And so this was created by OpenAI, I think. And so they have created this testing environment where you train an agent to run a boat race, sort of similar to Mario Go-Kart. And you get power-ups from certain things in that environment. And so, for example, one of the power-ups is that if you go to like, I think it's like a boosting tile where you go faster once you go to it. And so the problem when you do that is that you might think that, well, it will continue to play as normally and then just like try to go as fast as possible. But what actually happens is a bit different. So we'll see the video of what's actually happening. Oh, wait, I have to slow it down because I have my high-speed video. Always watch videos in higher speeds. It saves a lot of time. So here you can see it going around, being a bit confused. And then, let's see how long it is. Yeah, it's only a few seconds. So here it's just like messing around and starting to, you see these like, oh, I shouldn't point on the, so you see these like bonus points that it gets, that spawns right here. So instead of actually trying to maximize this goal over the entire race, or finishing the race and getting the points when you finish the race itself, it just concludes that, well, actually, if I just get the reward from entering these, it can just continue going around in this circle, even though it doesn't finish the race, it doesn't finish any faster. But since we gave it a reward for entering those tiles, we'll just continue with that forever until, I guess, if they implemented that the boat itself actually explodes, that would be the result of it. But so that was a problem that you didn't specify really that it has to finish the race as well, and not only go on the paths that gives it a reward. Oh wait. And then the second one is they call robustness problems. And those are when the reward function and the safety function agree, but you still get some problems. So for example, as the example that I brought up earlier with the safe exploration, which in this one is called island hopping, I think. That even though you have the correct function that it should avoid this water and that can see the water, it will still get the problem that it enters the water sometimes. And it doesn't manage to act in a safe way, even though you have a good reward function, because it's just really hard to figure out how to explore safely, or we haven't implemented that for the algorithms that it tried on. And so now just like, how can we actually do more in this area? If you find it interesting to think about both these practical things that are existing right now, but also to look into more far future concerns, like strategies in the longer term. So there we go. So first off, the Trust in AI track that we're running here. Currently we're summarizing the concrete problems in AI safety paper, and so we plan to make a summary of it and then present it to the rest of the attendees in order to learn by teaching. And then if we have time, we'll also work on trying to implement some of those problems mentioned in that paper in the Gridworlds. Another one that Birger mentioned as well is the 80,000hours.org, and they have advice on how to do work in AI safety. So you can read that. And then there's also, you can either try to work for or at least read the work that both OpenAI, which has a safety team, and then Deepmind has also a safety team that you can read their work. So OpenAI and Deepmind were the ones who created this environment that we looked into a bit. And then also here is Miri. They worked on the other approach, the more formal strategies for how do we model agents that might come in the farther future. What kind of decision-making strategies should it use? What kind of behavior can we prove or not prove that it will have? And so that's, if you want to look more into that strategy rather than only looking at existing methods, Miri, or I think their website is intelligence.org. They have a few papers there where they go into like pretty in-depth things. So it's kind of hard to actually read it unless you have read up on some like mathematics and niche logic things. But they also have this like alternate strategy that could be interesting to people. And also just like read the paper that we discussed, the concrete problems in AI safety, in order to get a better feel for what are the different problems and what are the possible solutions. I mean, and at this point, the paper is 2 years old, so with the speed that everything is developing in machine learning, many of the methods are like that they suggest are like old news by this point. So that could also be an interesting task you could do, to look into one of the problems and see, has anything come up in the recent years since this was published that can actually solve, or at least solve parts of those problems. Yeah, that's the last part of mine. So now you can ask any questions if you have it, or we can continue working on either discussions or working on the track you're interested in the AI hackathon. So any questions first? Okay, all right, yeah, Marcus.
What's like a good like introduction to AI safety that you should read? Like, so all of these are like in the weeds. Superintelligence, pretty old by now.
Yeah. So one channel that I find good is Robert Miles AI. So this channel, he's made some videos. For example, I think he has a playlist where one playlist where he goes through concrete problems in AI safety, the paper, and go through the arguments that are brought up there. And then he also has written, you might have seen this YouTube page. If you're interested in computer science, Computerfy is really good, and he's written some stuff on AI safety there as well. So that's a pretty good area. There's also some people working on what is they call Road to AI Safety Excellence. I haven't checked it out myself super in detail, but they're working on making a course, introductory course in AI safety. So that's another way to look into. But I haven't checked it out myself. But I think, as I understood it, the Robert Miles, who I showed on YouTube before, is collaborating with these. So I think it's high quality, but I haven't had time to check it out myself.
I don't think they have much content yet.
Yeah, I think it's like pretty early. So hopefully they'll publish a bit more. But
if you do want to learn, I think you can join their study group though, because they're trying to learn themselves.
Yeah. Right. Any more questions? Okay. So thank you for your time, and please continue continue your discussions from where you were, or any other discussions you want to have, and also feel free to join in on the different paths in the hackathon. So, as mentioned earlier, there's the satellite path, the health path, and
technique for AI safety.